Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayani Amba Tvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshini Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Devyaistavai Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidutsura suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om, if you click on the chat feature, you can follow the points that we will be discussing if you wish to do that. So in this highest knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, which is given in this 13th chapter, which is the absolute essence of the Upanishads, Bhagavan Shri Krishna answers Arjuna 6 questions. Kshetra is this body, and whatever we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, feel, emotions, thoughts, everything is Kshetra, whatever is known. And Kshetrajna, Bhagavan says, is me. I am the knower in you and in all beings. And then from there, Bhagavan talks about Jnanam. But Jnanam, he does not talk about knowledge, but the qualities that an individual needs to develop to get Jnanam. Amanitvam, Adambitvam, humility, service of the teacher, always staying in that knowledge, humility, love all. So those qualities are essential for a spiritual seeker. And then Bhagavan goes to Gneyam, which was the very difficult topic, where he says, I am inside and outside, I am far and I am near, I am indivisible but appears divided, just as space is indivisible, appears divided among the various rooms, the hall, the part, and so on. And I am your essence. I am who you are, but I am subtler than the subtlest. Tasmat avigneyam. That's why I cannot be seen by your senses, thought of by your mind. But at the same time, I am to be known. You have to know this consciousness, Lord, because it is the sustainer, the destroyer, and the creator. So all creator, sustainer, destroyer, I am. That's why I must be known. I have to be known. And I am the light of all lights. I am the light of consciousness, because of which you all are able to function. And then having said this, then Bhagavan talks about Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is the nature, the creative power, which creates this entire universe. Everything, whatever you see is Prakriti. Not only all the what you see, but what you experience, what you think, what you feel is all Prakriti. And Purusha is the enlivening principle. The consciousness functioning through Prakriti takes on the role of Purusha, also called Ishvara. And that Purusha is also me. So Prakriti is me, everything you see, and the knower, the enlivener is also me. But even though our true nature is of the nature of Purusha, of the nature of Atman, Brahman, but you and I are deluded because our mind is so caught in the Maya, in this world of Prakriti, that we forget what is our true nature. And that's why Bhagavan has to take birth again and again. Paritranaye sadhuna vinashaya dishkritam. Again and again, I have to come to give you this knowledge. He came as Sri Ramchandra Ji, he came as Sri Krishna, he came as Raman Maharishi, Shankaracharya, Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, Swami Vivekananda. So again and again, Bhagavan has to take birth to guide us. And whatever is created is because of Prakriti, but in the presence of Purusha, which is the experiencer. And then 2 weeks ago, Pankaj covered the shloka number 23, 24, 25, where he talked about Upadrashta Anumanta. So Bhagavan says, depending on how close you are to me, I play different roles within your body, within you. One is Upadrashta. I'm just a spectator where God is watching and I'm doing whatever I want. And that is called spectator. Just as when you go to a tennis match or a football match and you are watching, you are not doing anything. The people are playing. That is called Upadrashta or spectator. Then Anumanta means Bhagavan says, I permit, I allow you to do whatever you wish to do. That is the glory of human birth, that we have the ability to do what we want. God does not get involved, does not interfere. He gives us the freedom, but then we have to bear the karma phala. Then Bharta, then he says, I then also am the supporter. So then you say, whatever activities I am doing, Bhagwan is supporting them. Then Bhokta, then he says, and I become you when you are enjoying. You say that the Purusha in me is the enjoyer. So slowly I'm coming closer and closer to God that is within me. And then ultimately the fifth one, it's not the ultimate, but the fifth one is Maha Ishwar, the Supreme Lord of the entire universe and of my body. So little bit I have progressed. And then he says Paramatma, then it is this Supreme Atma within and without. And Dehe Asmin, in this body of this individual, it is called Purusha, the Purusha Para, the Supreme Self that is in my body. So slowly the individual's thinking is evolving. And then Bhagavan says, one who knows evam veti Purusha, one who knows Purusha and Prakriti completely in essence, not, oh, I have understood. Okay, I heard it one time. Okay, 13th chapter, not like that, but one who has understood completely in essence, with all its gunas, with all its qualities, then such an individual sarvatha vartamanoki nasa bhuyo vijayate. Then this person does not go back into the field of ignorance, not knowing. Just as once I have studied 2 + 2 = 4, then no matter how old I am, I'm never going to get ignorant of that. So similarly, one who has understood Prakriti and Purusha, then he is not reborn, means he does not go into that zone of ignorance. The rebirth topic will be also addressed in one of the shlokas today. Nasa bhuyoho abhijayate, bhuyaha abhijayate, then such a person is not born in the world of ignorance. That is the shloka number 24. And then in shloka number 25, Dhyane Atmani Pashyanti Kechid Atmanam Atmana, Bhagavan is giving us the various paths to reach him. So the first one he mentions is the path of meditation. Kechid, some people take up the path of meditation, dhyanena, with meditation, atmanam, atmani, atmana pashyanti. So they see the self in the self by the self. That means it is only Lord himself who can experience that. My body, mind, and intellect cannot, but I have to still my mind, and then the experience manifests. So the Lord alone can reveal himself, but I still have to put the effort in meditation for the mind to become still, and in that stillness, the Lord's presence is felt. And so those are the path of meditation. Then there are others who take the path of Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya comes from the word Sankhya, counting. So Sankhya Yoga is the systematic study of the scriptures. When the scriptures are systematically, logically studied from the teacher with humility, sitting at the feet of the teacher, surrendering my ego, surrendering my ignorance. Oh teacher, you know everything, I know nothing. With that attitude, if I go with the attitude, I already know it, and let me see what the teacher can teach me, then such a person will not learn. So the knowledge can be only obtained through humility. Water can only flow from a higher level to a lower level. So that's why they say sit at the feet of the teacher, which means humility. So that is called Sankhya Yoga, studying the scriptures systematically. And then the last path Bhagavan Shri Krishna told us last week is, 2 weeks ago, is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, as you all know, but just very briefly to summarize, Karma Yoga is doing all activities. Activities have to be done, but without I and my, without doership, surrendering to the Lord and working for the benefit of all, working for the benefit of society. So one who works for others, surrendering I and my, and dedicating all activities to the Lord is called Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is not if you work 16 hours a day, that is not Karma Yoga, that is karma. So having covered these paths, somebody might say, Bhagavan, I don't know Sanskrit. I haven't gone to a teacher to study. I don't have this ability to systematically analyze, you are that, you are not that, I am Brahman, and all these things, and all these paths, sadhan, chatushtaya, and all those things which you all, with the teacher. I don't have all those. All I have is bhakti, I have devotion, and I still want to reach you. So Bhagavan says, no problem. We have a path for everybody. That is the beauty of Hinduism. Nobody is condemned. Nobody is removed as sinner. Everybody is accepted. So we'll do verse number 26. Ramaban can please unmute and chant. Chapter 13, Shloka 26. Anye tvevamajanantaha.
Anye tvevamajanantaha.
Shrutvanyebhya upasate.
Shrutvanyebhya upasate.
Tepi chatitarantyeva.
Tepi chatitarantyeva.
Mrityum shruti parayanaha.
Mrityum shruti parayanaha.
Okay, Ramaban, please mute, and then we can all chant together. Anye tvevamajanantaha. Shrutvanyebhya upasate. Tepi chatitarantyeva. Mrityum shruti parayanaha. So how about those who have faith but do not have the ability to analyze systematically all these rules of grammar and Sanskrit. He says, Anye tu, even others, evam ajanantaha. Indeed, even if they don't know the previous paths. See, as we said, the three paths are not separate. We had also talked in the Thursday class. The karma and bhakti prepare the mind. When you do karma yoga, when you do bhakti, the mind becomes ready for knowledge. And then Gyan yoga will take us to the highest. So all three are required. You cannot say, I'm only going to do bhakti, only going to do karma, only going to do jnana. All three are required. One or the other may be stronger, may be predominant in us. So here, these people who have faith and have the willingness to learn, Shrutva, having heard from who? Anyebhyaha. Anyebhyaha means other teachers. Upasate, we'll talk about who are these other teachers. They worship me, worship Bhagwan. Tepi, they also cha, and they also atitaranti, they also cross eva, they also cross what? Mrityum, they also cross death. Why? Shruti parayanaha, because they have devotion in the what they have heard. Here, Shruti does not mean the Vedas, but what they have heard from other teachers. So what it is required in this path is that you are willing to listen. You have to listen. And some people say, I'm only happy doing bhakti. I don't want all this knowledge, solid nature. Okay, if you don't want, that's fine. Maybe next life you will have to go to a teacher and learn. Or you say, I'm going to serve the world and I'm going to build hospital. Very good. That's very good. Nothing wrong with bhakti, or nothing wrong with karma, but knowledge, when it is there, then it furthers. What they say, knowledge without bhakti is dry. Bhakti without knowledge is fanaticism. When you don't know, then you say, my God alone is real. That is fanaticism. So these people, what do? They go to other teachers. There are a lot of teachers who have spoken in regional languages, where they have studied from gurus, but then to make it easy for the general people, they speak in regional languages, like Tukaram Maharaj. He spoke in Marathi, beautiful abhangas, full of spiritual knowledge. Narsi Mehta spoke in Gujarati, very, very high teachings. It's not only bhajans and bhakti, but teachings. I was reading about Tyagaraja ji. Tyagaraja was a poet who spoke in Telugu, and hundreds and thousands of verses of devotion he has composed, full of knowledge, full of wisdom. And he became so famous. He only studied up to age 18 from his guru. After that, there was nothing more for him to study. And the rest of his life he spent in spreading this knowledge, composing bhajans and hymns, which other singers and other students have followed and made it into various branches of music. But his teachings were full of knowledge. A very beautiful incident happened in his life where the local king told him, I hear you are a great poet. I want you to write a poem in my glory. You have written enough for Bhagwan. He was Rama Bhakta. Write in my glory. I'll give you all the gold you want, all the money you want. I want you to compose. So, so you know what Tyagaraja says? He says, what is more important, Nidhi or Sannidhi? That was the poem he composed. Nidhi means gold, money. Or Sannidhi means being closer to God, closer to Ram. He said, you're a fool. He didn't call him a fool, but he said, you are thinking money is more valuable than coming close to God. So that idea was not only to teach the king, but to teach all the other people also, that more important is devotion for God rather than devotion for money. So that is called bhakti. And these people, once they go to these teachers, like for example, Gyaneshwar, he has written a beautiful commentary on Bhagavad Gita called Gyaneshwari, full of beautiful examples. then you should be willing to completely follow them. Not that I'll decide, okay, I've heard, but whether I will choose or not, that's my choice. No, it's with complete faith and complete surrender. Like I don't know how to swim and I go in the water, but there is a swim teacher who tells me, move your hand like this, leg like, you can't say I wish to move or I don't wish to move. You have to follow 100%. Otherwise you will drown. So Bhagavan says these people who have that much devotion, they are willing to follow completely and Shruti Parayana, and they repeatedly listen to this teaching, because ek baar mein nahi aata hai, again and again, again and again they listen. Parayana also means to sing it. So they sing it, but they also want to follow it. And these people also go beyond death. Mrityum taranti. What do they mean by mrityum taranti? Does not mean that they will never die. What it means is that when they have surrendered to the teacher, and the teacher tells them everything is Bhagwan, God alone is everything, then they have complete identification with that Bhagwan. They don't think God and I are separate. Once you surrender and once you are not separate from God, then how can you die? The body will perish, but you realize your immortal nature. So that is called true faith, not blind faith, but they have understood the scriptures from the teacher who maybe they have not studied Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, all those. They might have read the simple text, but the masters who have taught them, like Sant Gyaneshwar, Tukaram, Tyagaraja, were themselves realized masters, Narsimha Mehta, Mirabai. So their teachings, when others follow, they also reach the highest. Nisargadatta Maharaj is another example where he was a beedi maker, but what he did was he just listened to his guru, and his guru told him, you are that. And he had never studied any scriptures. And for 2.5 years, he gave up his business, his work, and remained with the idea, I am that, I am that. And then he also attained enlightenment. And then the question and answers that he has given are so high that only a great Vedantic master can do that. And that can only happen when you go beyond this BMI and become one with that. And that same thing, Patanjali Rishi also says that what is yoga? Yoga is to still the mind completely through various practices. That's why when we sit for meditation, we close our eyes so that the mind don't go out. We relax the body, we watch the breath. And in that quiet mind, you turn the mind's attention to the higher. So these people, even though they may not have studied a lot, but they have extreme bhakti, extreme devotion for their teacher, and they surrender their mind to the teacher who then turns the mind towards God. Or having listened to the teacher or read the teachings of these beautiful texts, Gyaneshwari, Tyagaraja, all these teachings of these great teachers, they also can reach the highest. So what Bhagavan is saying, that there is nobody for whom the doors of heaven, doors of enlightenment are closed. Doors of enlightenment are open to all. What it requires is surrender, willingness to learn, and willingness to serve, and total love for Bhagavan, that God alone is the most important thing in my life. And such people can reach the highest goal that is mentioned in the Upanishads, where the I am that, Aham Brahmasmi, that highest goal can also be reached by simple people. So for you and me, that is a very encouraging shloka that we can also reach. And Shankaracharya ji very beautifully in his Bhashya says, if such people can reach the highest, then how much better would be if we have a teacher like Pujya Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, who has given us the Bhagavad Gita. We are so blessed that these teachings are available to us and all these other acharyas of Chinmaya mission. So it should be possible for every one of us to reach now in this life itself. Let us not postpone it for some other life or some other time, or maybe when I am less busy. Let us do it now, here itself. So this is a very, very encouraging shloka Bhagwan has written for all of us, because I think most of us are in this category. We know a little bit, but we don't surrender. So that is shloka number 26. Now we'll go to shloka number 27, which talks about, again, Bhagwan comes to back to his topic about Prakriti and Purusha and how this whole creation came into being. And then he will talk a little more about who is this Parameshwar. So verse number 27. Yavat sanjayate kinchit
Yavat sanjayate kinchita
Sattvam sthavara jangamam
Sattvam sthavara jangamam
Kshetra kshetrajna samyogat
Kshetra kshetragna sanyoga
Tad vidhi bharatarshava.
Tadvidhi bharata shabha.
Okay, all together. Ramaban can please mute. Yavat sanjayate kinchit Sattvam sthavara jangamam Kshetra kshetrajna samyogat Tad vidhi bharatarshava. So Bhagwan wants to make sure that we don't forget, because these ideas can very quickly be lost, because we are so caught in the world that we forget that there is a Kshetrajna God within us who is constantly watching, and it is because of his presence I am able to function, and all creation is from him. So Yavat means whatever sanjayate, whatever is created. So all the world that is created, the world of perceptions, emotions, thoughts, whatever is created, kinchit, whatever is created. Sattvam means living beings. Some people, sattvam means also beings. So it can be either living beings or can be matter. Either way you can take it. Sthavara jangamam. Sthavara means that which is stationary, and jangamam means that which is moving. So moving and unmoving, both. How does it come into being? How does this creation happen? Kshetra, kshetrajna, samyoga. Kshetra means the field. Kshetrajna means the knower. Together they are required. One alone cannot do it. We need Kshetra and Kshetrajna. We need Prakriti and Purusha. We need both. Samyoga. Samyoga means, yoga means to unite. Samyoga means when they are perfectly united, then after that what happens? All this creation comes into being. And Tat Vidhi. And please know that. Who he's calling him? Bharatarshabha. Bharata Rishabha means bull among men. He said, you are calling him a bull? I thought you were his friend. But bull was a very respectable term. Rishabha, in fact, that is the first Tirthankara of the Jain faith, is called Rishabdev. So Rishabh was a very respected name. And he's the first Tirthankara. Mahavirji is, of course, the last Tirthankara of the Jain faith. But Rishabha, why bull was respected? Because India was an agricultural society at that time. And for agriculture, they didn't have tractors and all those. They used to use plow and bull. The bull will pull the plow, and that's how the land is irrigated. That's how the plowing goes on, and then we can put the seed. So to call somebody a bull was a respect, like today you say somebody is a lion among men, does not mean he's an animal. It means he is the best among men. So that's why he says you are the best among the Bharata family, because he belonged to the Bharata dynasty. That's why what knowledge I'm giving you is also the best. See, you give best knowledge to a person who will get it. You know, some person who is ignorant and you try to tell him Aham Brahmasmi and Tattvamasi and all, he won't be able to get it. So he says you are qualified for the highest knowledge. That's why he's calling him Bharata Rishabha. Then he says whatever is created, moving and unmoving, living and non-living, matter and energy. See, that's what they say. This whole universe is nothing but a combination of matter and energy. Even the inanimate, like a rock, has made of atoms. Atoms are neutrons and protons with electrons circulating. So energy is there everywhere. So matter and energy, spirit and matter, which is here is called Prakriti and Purusha, also called Kshetra and Kshetrajna Samyoga. So both are required. One alone cannot do it. And what is the substratum? The substratum is Brahman, which is beyond both. That he will tell us also in the 15th chapter. 15. Uttama Purushasta Anya, which is beyond matter and spirit. But for creation, we need matter and spirit to work together. Matter alone cannot work, cannot create. Matter alone cannot do anything. A lump of stone lying here cannot move, cannot walk, cannot talk. Or even this individual, when the life is gone, consciousness is no longer functioning, the body may be there, but I cannot even add 2 + 2, 4. So spirit is required, but spirit itself does not do anything. Spirit needs Prakriti. So both are important. Prakriti and Purusha, Kshetra and Kshetrajna, both are necessary. Matter and spirit have to work together. And the substratum is the consciousness or Brahman. And the example they give is electricity. Electricity is there in all the wires. You put on the switch, but if there is no bulb, will your room be lit? No, you have all the electricity you want, but you have to connect the bulb, then only the room can be lit. And the bulb itself cannot light. You have to have the current. That's why if the power is gone, all the bulbs in your house become dark. So electricity is the spirit and bulb is the matter, and they are both required. But then Gurudev in his commentary says that this combination cannot happen. Spirit and matter cannot combine. It's like sand. If you want to combine it with sugar, you can, right? Sand and sugar you can combine because they are both of the same degree of reality. But on the sand, if you see a mirage, like in the desert when the sun is shining, are they of the same degree of reality? No, the sand has 1 degree and the mirage is a superimposition because of ignorance, because of light. So that's what they are saying, that spirit and matter really cannot combine because they are of different nature, just as the mirage and the sand are of different nature. The rope and the snake is of different nature. Gurudev in his commentary says ghost and post. They are of different nature. So only way the combination can happen is called superimposition, adhyasa in Sanskrit. So it has to be a superimposition. What do we mean by superimposition? What we mean, just as the sand is there, but when the sunlight is reflected, the appearance of mirage happens. When it's dark and I don't see a rope very clearly, I project a snake upon it. So it has to be a projection. Another example they gave is Rajat Shuktikau. Like there is a shell on the beach and I'm walking and the full moon is shining on that shell and that gives me an appearance, it is silver. I found a piece of silver. I run to grab it. I find it's an ordinary shell. So the shell is the substratum on which the silver was superimposed by my ignorance. So similarly, the Purusha, the consciousness, is the substratum on which Prakriti is superimposed. Right now, it appears to us as real. This world appears very real. And there, we are not saying that the world is not there. We are seeing it, hearing it, smelling. But what they say is that this world does not have the same degree of reality as Brahman, as the consciousness. It is an appearance created by magic, by the magic of Maya. That's why in Dakshinamurti Stotram he says, Maya viva vijrimba yapi maha yogi vaya swechaya. Just as a magician creates the magic world, so Bhagwan has created this magical world for us to enjoy, but we got so lost in this enjoyment that we forgot Bhagwan, who had sent us, who had created this for us. And we started thinking this world is real and it is mine, I and my. Oh, kaun Bhagwan hai, theek hai, will see him after death. But right now, let me have fun. Khao, piyo, maja karo. What is the use of, studying all this? It's okay. Bhagwan, let him be there. As long as it doesn't bother me, I won't bother him. And so because of this, we have this confusion that I am this body. So when I say I am sitting on this chair, what you have to say is I am and body is sitting on this chair. Or I am getting old. No, I am, body is getting old. I am confused. No, don't say I am confused. I am, my mind is getting confused. So you have to separate I am from what is happening. So tomorrow, Varsha Ben, if Satish Bhai comes and tells you I am, and the body needs breakfast, don't think he is crazy. He has just heard the Gita class very well. So please excuse him if he says that tomorrow. So the point is not that you go around telling everybody that. That's why they say a wise person, he doesn't go and say, I am, and then my body is sitting, or I am, and my body is eating, or I am, and my body is hungry. No, he'll say, I am hungry, and he will eat also. And you say, not only he eats, but when they come for bhiksha, they eat 3 times a day. They have breakfast bhiksha, lunch bhiksha, dinner bhiksha. And I thought he was an enlightened master. Yes, but what they understand is that this body has its prarabdha, has its karmas, its destiny. And so as long as the body's prarabdha is going on, the body has to eat. Body cannot stop eating. And when the prarabdha is over, he cheerfully drops the body because he has no attachment to the body. He understands that the body is for prarabdha, and the body the wise person uses to teach the rest of us, gives us the knowledge of what is reality. And that's, he understands, he or she, the wise person can be anyone, but they understand that this body is for service, and Bhagwan has given me this body, and they spend their life in teaching. And that is called wisdom. So I am, and whatever I am doing, my body is working, my body is tired, and so on. That has to be. In fact, Guruji one time spoke for 3 days in Orlando, Swami Tejomayananda ji, and at the end of 3 days, he had spoke about Atma and Anatma. Atma means consciousness, Anatma means Prakriti, whatever is. And at the end of the 3 days, Guruji says it very beautifully. He says, in 3 days, I have taught you what people come to Bombay and learn for 2 years. So the essence of what people learn for 2 years, I have taught you in 3 days, and the rest is all vistara. Rest is all expansion on this. So Atma, Anatma, Vivek. That's why the whole Bhagavad Gita is also that. What is in fact, the 13th chapter especially does that. So 13th chapter, if you have understood, You have the essence of all the Upanishads. Then you can read Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, Vivek Chudamani, and so on. So the rest is all Vistara, all expansion of that. And then they say, oh, but you know how many problems I have? You know, I have physical problems, I have arthritis, I have stress, I have confusion, my husband, my wife, my children, my teenager. All those problems belong to BMI, body, mind, and intellect. They don't belong to me because I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect. And a wise person understands that. So that's what we have to function with, that attitude, that problems are not belonging to me. Whatever the body's prarabdha, it will undergo. Mind, intellect, let it. It doesn't mean you don't take care of the problem. If there's a physical problem, you take Tylenol or you go to the doctor or whatever, but understand they are not me. And even Papa and Punya don't belong to me. They belong to the BMI. Sin and merit both belong to the BMI. He says, then why are the scriptures telling us about sin and merit? Why are they giving us more information? You know, all the books say you should do this. In the 10 commandments, you know, Moses says, thou shalt not cheat, thou shalt not steal, all those. Why are those done? Why is more and more information being given? So the example, very, very beautiful example I heard, he says, suppose your shirt has a brown spot on it, a mud, and you don't want to wash the whole shirt, right? It's just one little spot. So what do? You take a little soap and put soap on it. You say, already there is mud and now you are putting soap? No. Put some soap, little water, and the mud goes away with the soap. The mud and the soap and everything goes away. So these scriptures are like that soap. They tell us do good, punyas, do not do papa. That is, good karmas are like that soap. So when that punya is done and the papas go away, then such a mind is ready for the highest knowledge. So that's why the scriptures say, do punya, don't do papa, do merit, do not commit sin. And that is called Prakriti and Purusha. In the path of knowledge, in the path of bhakti, it is beautifully said by Tulsi Das Ji, Bhavani Shankaram Vandau with Shraddha Vishwas Rupino Yavat Vinana Pashyanti Siddha Swantama Ishwaram. So he says, I prostrate Vandau to who? Bhavani and Shankar. So Parvati and Shankar together, because Shankara represents the changeless, Parvati represents the energy, the power, the Shakti, the energy, the power which creates this whole universe. So I prostrate to both of them because both are required. Without both's presence, I will never know what is the true nature, that God is within us, Swantam Ishwaram, with Yavad Binana Pashyanti. Without them, the Siddhas, the seekers will not know the presence of God. So he starts Tulsi Ramayan with this prayer, and also Kalidasa, I was reading about him, he's one of the greatest Sanskrit poets ever lived in the history of mankind, probably one of the best. And in his beautiful work called Raghuvamsham, Raghuvamsham is not only a story of Ramayana in Sanskrit, thousands of verses, but all the ancestors of Bhagwan Sri Rama, Dashrath and all his parents, and the entire Raghuvamsham history is told in Sanskrit. And there also he starts with a prayer. He says, Parvati and Parmeshwara, I bow down to both of them. I meditate upon them because they are like word and meaning. They are always together, like word and meaning. For example, if I say blue, what thought comes to you? Blue, right? You think of blue color. If I say spoon, immediately what image comes? Spoon. So the word and the meaning are together. So Parvati and Parameshwar, Shiva and Parvati are always together like word and meaning. And they are my mother and my father. And whatever I achieve is because of their grace. So that is what they say, that you can say Parvati, Shankar, you can say Sita, Ram, you can say Radhe, Krishna, it doesn't matter, but both are essential for creation and for my spiritual growth. So that is the role of woman. Woman is the Shakti in the house. That's what they say. If the woman in the house, the mother, is working unselfishly, then that house becomes heaven. But if that same woman becomes just caring for herself, then the house becomes hell. So that is the glory of woman, and that's why they are worshipped. And that is what the shloka says, that Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Sanyogat, Prakriti and Purush are both required for creation. Now we'll go to one more beautiful shloka which talks more about Purusha, talks about Parameshwar, talks about the Supreme Lord. So verse number 28. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu.
Samam sarveshu bhuteshu.
Tishtantam parameshwaram.
Tishtantam parameshwaram.
Vinashyatsva vinashyantam.
Vinashyatsva vinashyantam.
Yah pashyati sa pashyati.
Yah pashyati sa pashyati.
All together. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu. Tishtantam parameshwaram. Vinashyatsva vinashyantam. Yah pashyati sa pashyati. This is a very famous line, Yah pashyati sa pashyati. Bhagavan Shri Krishna uses it more than once in the Bhagavad Gita. One who sees, he sees. He said, what do you mean, one who sees, he sees? So isn't it a duplication? So we'll talk about that. So he says, what does he see? This wise person. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu. In all beings, sarveshu.
देर बात करेंगे सडाना गीता का प्रोग्राम चल रहा है गीता
Samam sarveshu bhuteshu. In all beings, seventh case plural, sarveshu bhuteshu. Samam, the same, one, alone. Tishtantam. Tishtantam means abiding, residing, staying in all beings. Who stays the same? One, Parameshwaram, the Param Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, is there in all beings the same. It's not that he's more in a saint and less in a sinner, or he's more in a human and less in a dog or a stone. Bhagavan is Samam. He is the same. We'll talk about that. Tishtantam Parameshwaram, the Supreme Lord. Vinashyatsu, among the destroying things that are perishing. Again, this is plural. Vinashyatsu, in the perishing things, Bhagavan is avinashyantam, imperishable among the perishing. Even though the body is perishing, the consciousness within does not perish. Even when I drop my body, I as consciousness don't die. One who sees alone sees. He alone has the right knowledge. So let us see what we mean by samam. Samam means same. In English, it is the same. What it means is that there is no distinguishing. It is called nirvisheshaha. You know, like we say, oh, when you're introducing a speaker, you say he's a very distinguished speaker and he has so many PhDs and we are so blessed he's come. Bhagavan says, I am undistinguished, which means there is no less or more in Bhagavan. It's not that one part is smart, one part is like among human beings, it may happen. You know, some may be smarter than others, some may be good in art, some may be good in sports. And then, you know, and human is superior to dog and, you know, or to a rock. Obviously, the intellectual level varies, but in Bhagavan, there is no vishesha, there is no distinguishing. He is undistinguished. You say, oh, he's not distinguished. No, because there is nothing like less and more in Bhagavan. He is the same. And that is the supreme. It's not same as inferior, but same as superior, and remains the same at all times. It does not happen that when the world is being created, God is happy, and when the world is being destroyed, God is unhappy. No, God remains the same, because creation, sustenance, and destruction are the nature of things. Whatever is created will be maintained and then will be destroyed. So that's why we have Bhagavan Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. All three are aspects of one consciousness. So creation, sustenance, destruction is an ongoing process. The seed is destroyed for the tree to be born. Then in the tree comes a flower, and then the flower is destroyed for a fruit to be born. Fruit gets destroyed, seed is born, and then seed again goes to ground, another. So constant creation is the nature of things. So that consciousness which is supporting everything is unchanged. It is like the ocean. Gurudev in his commentary says, ocean is there. In the ocean, waves are born and being born, created and perish, created and perish. Now the ocean should be happy or unhappy. Oh, more waves are coming, but then also waves are dying. So sometime ocean will be happy, sometime will be crying. No. That's what I also have to understand. When my body deteriorates and when it's time for me to leave, it's okay. That is the nature. Body is to perish. Whose body will stay forever? Even Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Shri Rama and Jesus and Buddha, when they came, they also all had to drop their bodies. So body is meant to go, but pay attention to the source. Pay attention from where everything has come. When somebody is intelligent, give credit to Bhagwan. When you accomplish something well and you make a beautiful dish in the house and everybody praises it, that's good. Be happy, but then immediately your attention should turn. Thank you, Bhagwan, for giving me the ability to cook, the ability to teach, the ability to talk, the ability to sing, the ability to work when I'm taking care of patients. Again, Bhagwan, thank you for giving me the knowledge and the ability to take care of patients. So always pay attention that in this changing, there is a changeless factor. Unless you pay attention to the changeless factor, you will not be aware of changes. The example I had also talked in the Tuesday class, that if I'm driving in a car and another car is coming from the other side in the highway, I won't know the speed of the other car because they're both moving. But if I'm standing on the side of the highway, then I can say, okay, this car is going fast, this car is going slow. So if I am also moving, then I won't know what the speed of the other movement is. But if I am changeless, then only I will know the speed. So similarly, to see the changes of this world, identify with the changeless factor. They say, Ram jharokhe baitkar jakka natak dekh. Watch the natak of this world sitting under the Sri Ram's jharokhe, in his abode. If you stay, then you can watch the whole world as a drama. In Gujarati, they have very beautiful dramas. A lot of them I've seen. So this world is a huge drama. Just watch it and enjoy the drama. Then you are not involved. And what you have to understand, that when they say avinashyantam, it does not perish, means there is no birth. If there is birth, then there will be those shat vikaras, asti, jati, vardate, parinamyate, vinashyate, all those six. So it is there, it is born, it grows, it modifies, it decays, and it dies. So death will happen if you have birth. If there is no death, means there is no birth. So Bhagwan, the Brahman, the consciousness, was never born, and there was never a time when Brahman, God, was not there, and there is never a time when God will not be there. You and I are created and we will perish. You say, Bhagwan, you had told that to us in the second chapter. I remember, little I remember. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. But that time, Bhagwan, I couldn't understand anything. Thank you for repeating this in the 11th chapter. Second chapter mein to main buddhu tha. I couldn't understand anything. But idea is that this knowledge is timeless. Bhagwan has given it to us again and again in all the Upanishads, in all the scriptures. Everywhere this knowledge appears, and one who sees alone sees correctly. Otherwise, what you and I do, we remain confused. We remain confused all the time, that what is permanent and what is temporary. We hold on to the temporary and expect permanent joy. Anybody says, I want temporary joy or permanent joy. You want permanent joy, right? So hold on to the permanent. Don't expect the temporary, whether it's my husband or my wife or my child or my money or my house or my job or my profession to give me permanent joy. One who sees alone sees. And that one has to understand that my nature is asti bhati priyam, and whatever I'm seeing is nama rupa. That's what Shankaracharya ji says in Drig Drishya Vivek. Asti means existence, bhati means knowledge or consciousness, and priyam means that which is dear, which is infinite, which is dear to me, that is me, myself. And nama rupa, the name and form are superimpositions. What they call Satchidananda or Asti Bhati Priyam is my true nature, and nama rupa are superimposition. So Priyam means what is dear to me. I am dear to myself. So whatever you see in this world has all the three qualities. It exists, it is known, and it is dear to somebody. You say, what do you mean dear? The trash I have in my garbage can, when I throw that out, it's not dear to me. How do you say it is dear? You know who it is dear to? Those germs outside and those flies. They are happy. New garbage has come. We can enjoy that. So everything is dear to everybody, even garbage, even the dirt, these germs and these mosquitoes and these flies, and they enjoy that. So whatever exists, its essential nature is asti bhati priyam, and nama rupa, name and form are superimpositions. So we focus on name and form, but understand I am that. So when we say we are all that, we are all one, that is the essence of the scriptures. We say all one means I and you and he and she as body, we are all one. Looking through the senses, I say I see everybody as one. You can't. If you see everybody as one, then you're not a realized master. You need glasses. Go get your eyes checked. At the body level, you cannot see all as one because there are differences. Our senses are made to show us the differences. That's why, in Bhagavad Gita, it says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmani Gavi Hastini Shunicha Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So there may be a Brahman who is educated, there may be a dog, there may be a cow. The Pandit sees all the same, then you say, what's wrong? What they mean is the essence of all is the same. At the body level, there are different people and you deal with them as whatever is required. If a respectable person comes, you bow down to him and wash his feet and give him some food. If a dog comes, you give him food and let him go. You don't have to bow down and touch the dog's feet. Oh, Bhagwan, though Tukaram did that, but you and I, we are not of that ability to do that. So the point is that you treat everybody as they are and understand that the senses are made to show differences. The sense organs are made to show differences. That's why you see yellow color and blue color and red color. If you say, I only see one color, then you are colorblind. So in the world, you will see differences. As long as you are looking through the senses and you think I am the body, yes, there will be differences. But in reality, everyone that you see is Bhagwan, is consciousness. That's what Tulsidas Ji says, Siya Ram mein sab jag jani, karahu pranam, jori jugapani. I see this whole world as Sita and Ram, and whoever I come, I prostrate to them because the essence of all is that. So that's why when we meet somebody, we say Namaste. Namahate means I bow down to the Lord in you. So that is the essence of these three shlokas, that people, even who don't have this highest knowledge, can reach the highest if they surrender to the teacher with faith. And whatever you are seeing is a combination of Prakriti and Purusha, Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and that Bhagwan, the consciousness, is the same in all and imperishable. And it is up to us. Do I identify myself with that BMI? Then I will suffer. But if I identify myself with consciousness and watch the BMI, then my life will become much more pleasant. So problems come to everybody, but the question is how much you identify with them. Thank you very much. Beautiful three shlokas Bhagwan has given. It's such a privilege to cover them. Thank you all. We have time. Please feel free to add any points or any questions you might have.
Hari Om, Anilji.
Hari Om,
You
Anil.
just explained I am and then talked about the body.
Yes.
So is it I am, is that, are we talking of consciousness of
Absolutely.
I am and body? Okay.
Yeah, I am means I am that consciousness.
And the
And
body
then-
is, my body is
my body is
hungry and
functioning.
my body is happy. Okay. Thank
Right.
you.
My body is happy. My body is unhappy. My body is hurting. My body is getting old. My mind is happy, unhappy. My intellect is confused, not confused. So all those things happen at the level of the body. I
Body and
am
mind.
remains the same. I am means I am consciousness.
Okay.
And in my presence, this body may be hurting. This body may be getting old. This body may be hungry. This body may be thirsty. So you take care of whatever bodily problems there are, but the I am is always separate from that.
Thank
And
you.
same way, when you don't say I am confused, I am, my mind is confused. I mean, it's not a suitable way to talk, but
Yeah,
that
but
should be the
your mind,
understanding.
you
of the mind.
understand that.
Yeah, I remember with when my daughter Neha was in 7th grade and we used to go in the winter. In those days, before global warming, it was very cold in the morning. And the car used to be bitterly cold, and she used to go for 0 period, and we had to leave home at 7 in the morning. And we used to always joke, I am not the body is cold, I am not cold. And that used to be our dialogue every morning. I am not the body, I am not cold, body is cold. So with that understanding, the body will go through. That is the nature of the body. That is the nature of body to have problems. The nature of the mind to be happy, unhappy. Nature of the intellect to be confused. But I am none of those. So as Moini Auntie said very beautifully, I am the consciousness. I am the body, and the mind and the intellect will continue to do its activities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie. Anything else you have? Anyone else?
No, these sloks were very beautifully done. But I like the word, the ya pashyati sa pashyati. The one who sees, it's only with the right vision we can see it, intellectually understanding all the shastras, the deeper meaning, then only we'll be able to see that substratum in all of us, which is like one in all and all in one. Then only that is sapashyati, yapashyati. I had to write the whole reflection. I have about 4 pages written on that, but I think that was the meaning, right vision and right knowledge. That only will. Otherwise, we will see multiple things and we would not know. So that That is very, very beautifully done, though, in the slokas also. And you explained well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kusum. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that is the right vision to see oneness, but oneness at the substratum level, at the level of consciousness, and then to treat everybody as one. If I have a couple of minutes at the end, I'll talk about the practical application of that. Does anybody have anything to add? Satish Bhai, anything?
This is wonderfully and succinctly summarized that I, the Satchit Anand, is the unperishing within the perishing.
Yes.
Yes.
That's so wonderful. I mean, it makes so much sense in a practical way. When we think of the world and us, it's a wonderful way to look at it. That everything is perishing. Everything you see, hear, touch, it's all perishing. But myself, my divine self, is unperishing.
Yes.
Within that.
Unperishing within the perishing.
That's all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? We have time, couple of minutes. If not, I'll tell the practical application of this. I was reading recently, there was, I know I've already spoken, but this is how to see the oneness. Recently, there was a seminar on hunger, a world seminar. And one reporter was reporting and he wrote an article. He said that the last speaker was a gentleman from Africa and from one of the poor countries. And he was talking about starvation and how much food shortage and how many problems they have. And he said, because it was the last talk and there was a cocktail party going on outside because the food and the cocktails had been served earlier. So everybody left. So only the speaker was there, the president, and the guy who had to, the audio visual guy who had to pick up that. Rest, everybody ran away. So they are on the sitting for a conference of hunger, but they are more interested in what I can eat and how much I can drink. They say that if you, all the alcohol that is consumed in the world, millions and millions of grains, pounds of grains can be, millions and millions of people can be fed, or how much food we waste, how much. So the point is that there is enough food in the world. The problem is it is not properly distributed. The rich countries have more, poor countries. Why? Because they don't see the oneness. If you truly see oneness, then there won't be any tendency to hoard or to raise the prices, that, the food should become expensive so the company can make profit and the poor countries cannot buy food. Poor people cannot buy food. Even now we find in the US, food prices have gone up so much that grocery workers cannot buy groceries from their own store. If the price has gone up so much. And I was reading, one lady actually says, to feed my children, I cannot buy food. She works in Walmart in the grocery section. The prices are so high. So she's on my way home, I buy McDonald's fast food because that is cheap. I can afford it. So the point is that even in the presence of all this food, she is not able to. That means there is something wrong with society. If we truly see oneness, then everybody at least should get a decent meal and have a decent living. And this poverty is there because the wealth is only concentrated even in a few hands. Even in the so-called poor countries, we find there are the millionaires and billionaires who have all the wealth, and they're down outside their building, people are starving to death. So that is oneness, where I share what I have with those who are less fortunate. And, so that I thought that is the practical application. Yav pashyati sa pashyati. One who sees one Bhagwan in everybody, then I won't be, selfish. I won't be hateful, angry, all that. So I thought that was the practical application, just about the seminar, how, it's important. So thank you very much. Anything else? If not, we can do the Aarti.
But that application also we have to put into practice to help everybody. And I think that's much more important than just seeing the oneness and not doing the actions, to see how much I can contribute to have that oneness.
Right.
And that I think is also very important practical aspect of it.
Right. Yeah, that's why our mission motto is producing more than what we consume and giving more than what we take. So that is what the practical application of that. Thank you, Kusum. Giving maximum happiness to maximum people for maximum time. Yeah, thank you, Kusum, for bringing that up. So we'll do the Aarti. Om na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yamagnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. Arati Shri Chinmaya Sadguru ki Devya Rupa Murati Karuna ki. Arati Sadguru ki चरणों में उनके शांति समाए शरणागत की भ्रांति मिटाए पाप ताप संताप हरण की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की वेद उपनिषद गीता को गाया धर्म सनातन फिर से जगाया शुद्ध नीति प्रीति शंकर की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की सिद्ध पहाड़ी की तपो भूमि में नित्य विराजे गुरु हमारे भक्त हृदय आनंद स्रोत की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की। बोलिए श्री राधे कृष्ण भगवान की जय। श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। Everybody can please take the आरती।
कायेन वाचा
मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। हरि ओम। Thank you very much. See you next Sunday.
Thank you very much.